Canada's giant $4.79 billion Gordie Howe Bridge, once a proud symbol of trade, now faces trouble and might end up as a lonely, empty bridge to nowhere. As its grand opening in fall 2025 gets closer, a financial disaster hits from Washington. Trump's reported 25% tariffs on Canadian cars, a harsh blow straight to the heart of the auto industry. Backed into a corner, Canada strikes back with loud and powerful revenge. This isn't just a small argument. It's a dangerous economic fight ready to explode. Will this bridge, meant to connect Detroit and Windsor, turn into a billion-dollar mistake? A sad sign of a broken partnership? Can Ottawa save its huge investment from this fiery trade war, or was it always just a risky dream? The Gordie Howe dream dashed? For years, the dream of a new, modern, public bridge crossing the Detroit River was a bright sign of hope for trade across North America. The old, privately owned Ambassador Bridge, a worn-out piece from the Great Depression era, had long been a major traffic problem, clearly creaking and bending under the pressure of carrying about 25% of the $760 billion in yearly trade between the US and Canada. That's almost $200 billion a year being squeezed, slowed down, and delayed by one old, breaking bridge. The Gordie Howe International Bridge was designed to be the powerful, shining fix, a grand 6-lane cable-supported bridge nearly 1.5 miles long. It was planned with fast truck lanes, smooth links to Interstate 75 in Michigan and Highway 401 in Ontario, and modern customs areas. The goals were huge. Truck drivers could save over $1.5 billion in 30 years, and crossing times would be cut by 20 important minutes. For the fast-moving car industry, where parts are rushed across the border again and again, this sounded perfect. And who's paying for this huge $4.79 billion project? Canada. In a bold and risky move, Ottawa chose to cover the full cost, hoping to earn the money back through tolls, first estimated to bring in $70.4 million each year. This bridge wasn't just metal and roads. It was Canada's bold bet on a smoother, stronger future for trade in North America. But just as the Gordie Howe Bridge was getting ready to open, the Trump government made a move that shocked everyone, from Ottawa to Wall Street to the busy factories of Windsor and Detroit. News came out that they were placing tough 25% tariffs on cars made in Canada and many important auto parts. This wasn't just a warning. It was a direct attack on the closely tied US-Canada car industry, which is a major part of their shared economy. Some in the White House gave weak reasons like national security, fixing unfair trade, or bringing jobs home. But experts say this is a flat-out economic war, a reckless move that could destroy years of carefully built trade systems. These tariffs are economic destruction, plain and simple, said Flavio Volpe, head of Canada's auto parts makers group. They completely ignore how deeply connected our industry is and will bring huge pain to workers and shoppers on both sides. So how did Canada respond? With a mix of shock, anger, and strong will to fight back. The bridge's building first started when former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in charge, and he hoped it would help bring North America closer together. But that hope is now completely flipped. Prime Minister Mark Carney, whose team is dealing with the bridge's launch during this tough trade fight, now faces a big political and money problem caused by how bad things have gotten. This one-sided, unfair, and honestly rude move by the US is a huge letdown for our North American friendship, Carney said in a speech to the country, his voice showing how serious the problem is. Canada will not just sit back while our key industry is attacked like this. We will stand up for our workers and our country, and we will act fast and firmly. In just days, Canada hit back with its own tough list of tariffs on US products, starting a horrifying trade fight that no one really wants, but now seems impossible to avoid. The dream of easy trade shown in the nearly finished Gordie Howe Bridge now looks like a sad and fake promise in the middle of a growing fight. We built a bridge for a partner and they answered by building a huge wall of tariffs, said a Canadian trade leader privately to CBC News, his voice full of sadness. 6 border crossings per car part. To really understand why these tariffs are so deeply damaging, you have to get how strange and complex the North American car industry truly is. It's not like a car is made in one place and then sent to another. Not even close. Before a car is finished in Windsor or Detroit, its parts usually rush back and forth across the US-Canada border 6, 7, or even 8 stressful times. For example, an engine block might be made in Michigan, shaped in Ontario, then sent to Ohio for more work, and finally brought back to Canada to be put in the car. This very fast and tightly connected just-in-time system was carefully built over many years and depends fully on smooth, tax-free border movement. Now imagine putting a painful 25% tariff on every one of those trips. The whole system either breaks down completely or becomes so expensive that it hurts the companies badly. All of a sudden, that Canadian engine part costs 25% more to enter the US, and the US-made transmission costs another 25% more to come back into Canada. These growing costs will be massive, making it nearly impossible for North American car makers to compete with the rest of the world. This isn't just slowing things down, it's like shoving a huge tree into the engine, shouted Dr. Peter Hall, a car supply expert from the University of Windsor, his voice filled with frustration in a talk with the Globe and Mail. It shows a huge, almost on-purpose misunderstanding of how this important system actually works. And the damage is already starting to show. Currently, alarming news is circulating that Stellantis, formerly Fiat Chrysler, a major player in the Windsor-Detroit automotive industry, has temporarily halted production at its Windsor assembly plant. They blamed the new harsh US tariffs and the resulting supply chain problems. Thousands of Canadian car workers are now facing possible job losses, their futures put at risk by a trade fight they didn't even start. The feeling in Windsor, a city whose entire success is tied to car making and cross-border trade, is now full of fear and anger. It's a dangerous mix of red-hot rage and cold panic. Our members build some of the best cars in the world, and now the US says their work is a national security threat? That's outrageous, shouted Lana Payne, national president of Unifor, Canada's biggest private sector union, her voice full of emotion during a big protest in Windsor. Similar shutdowns and worried talks are now spreading fast in factories across Detroit and the US Midwest, as Canada's fight-back tariffs begin to hit American parts makers. The Gordie Howe Bridge, made to help these cars and parts move quickly across the border, now faces a sad future where there might not be much left for it to carry. A white elephant. The new Gordie Howe Bridge was mostly built for the car business. But right now, the car business is having a lot of problems. So, what does this mean for Canada's big $4.79 billion bet on this bridge? People who study money and trade are warning that dire consequences could occur. If these new taxes, tariffs on goods stay, the number of trucks they thought would use the Gordie Howe Bridge is just a made-up story, said Dr. Emily Carter, a leading economist in a report that was read by thousands across the country. They hope to make over $70 million a year from bridge tolls because they expected lots of car parts to be traded. If that trade gets wrecked, the money is gone. Canada might not get its money back for many, many years, if ever. Instead of a busy road for trade, the Gordie Howe Bridge might become like a giant expensive toy that no one uses. A huge, overbuilt bridge that shows a broken dream of the US and Canada being good friends. It seems like a mean joke that Canada is paying for the whole bridge, hoping to get paid back by tolls from trade that the US president is now trying to stop. This bridge was supposed to make a lot of money for Canada and help business run smoother in North America, wrote Prime Minister Mark Carney, sounding very upset in an article. Now it looks like it could become an empty, unused bridge, a very costly lesson about trusting a neighbor who can suddenly be unfriendly. A really twisted, almost funny in a bad way thing about this tariff problem is what might happen to the old Ambassador Bridge. The Gordie Howe Bridge was built to take over from the Ambassador Bridge. The family that owns the Ambassador Bridge has often been criticized. People say they haven't spent enough money to fix their old bridge while making tons of money because they control the busiest border crossing. If the car trade gets really bad because of these tariffs, will the Ambassador Bridge also get hurt? Or in a strange way, could it do better if sending goods across the border becomes too expensive and slow? The truth is that the car business is the one getting hurt the most right now, and the damage won't stop there. The Gordie Howe Bridge was built to be an important path for all kinds of goods on trucks between Ontario and the US Midwest, like food from farms, things made in factories, basic materials, and stuff people buy. If Canada puts its own new taxes on US goods, and if US taxes spread to other Canadian things besides cars, then way less stuff might cross the border. Canadian farmers, factory owners, and people who sell natural resources are already having a tough time with other money problems. This would be another huge, maybe even crushing blow. These bad effects would spread through the whole Canadian economy, meaning people could lose jobs and businesses might stop spending money, even far away from the car factories in Windsor. These tariffs are like a bad sickness, warned Perrin Beatty, the head of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. They start in one area, but if you don't stop them, they will spread and poison the whole economy, leaving a lot of damage behind. Is there any way to fix this giant money problem that we seem to have caused ourselves? Right now, in late May or early June 2025, leaders are surely working very hard and secretly talking to each other. Canadian leaders are likely calling Washington frequently, pleading with them to be reasonable, make exceptions, or eliminate these highly detrimental tariffs. Business groups on both sides of the border, from car makers to farmers, are likely trying very hard to get politicians to listen, warning them about terrible job losses and damage to the economy that can't be fixed. There would be huge pressure on politicians in U.S. states that really need trade with Canada, like Michigan, Ohio, and New York. But the U.S. government has often been stubborn about trade fights and sometimes uses tariffs as a political weapon instead of a good money idea. So finding a way to calm things down is very tricky and dangerous. We are begging both governments to stop before it's too late, to look at the facts and to understand that no one wins in a trade war between countries that depend on each other so much, said a statement from U.S. and Canadian business groups. But is anyone in the U.S. government even pretending to listen? Or is the idea of protecting our own country just too tempting, even if it means messing up North America's most important trade path, just as its amazing new bridge is ready to open? Canada poured billions into its Gordie Howe dream, a bridge for boundless prosperity. Now Trump's tariff torpedoes threaten to twist this symbol of unity into a tragic monument to a fractured alliance. A heartbreaking white elephant born of a self-destructive trade war. With Canada's biggest bet hanging precariously, is it doomed? What hope remains? Tell us what you think below.